Cybersecurity is often advertised in a very abstract way. You hear advertisements such as "this is a secure system" or "this product make your network secure" or "we design secure software systems." These claims are rather naive and simplistic. What does it really mean for something to be secure? Secure from whom? Or secure against what? For instance, let's consider something that is supposed to be a secure computer system. Is it secure against a TNT blast, or secure from shoulder surfing, or secure from industrial espionage? Probably the computer system is not secure against these kind of threats. But that doesn't mean that the computer system is faulty either. Even if these threats are not taken into account, it's that the system's designers have made some informed compromises. Problems arise when these compromises about systems and their security are being made without proper consideration. Questions about security are not as straightforward as in the previous example, though. This applies in computing and computer science in particular. For instance, we might consider a secure telephone line. Is it safe from a random bypasser, or a group of criminals, or the National Intelligence Agency? Or what about a bank's computer system? Is it safe if it's attacked by an individual consumer like one of us? Is it safe against the bank teller? Or is it safe against the bank manager? The takeaway here is that security is not binary. Security is not only black and white. The context of use is way more important than the technology. So even though antivirus software doesn't protect from a nuclear blast, it doesn't make it useless. It just means that we shouldn't forget to secure the walls and doors or locks in the doors surrounding the computer systems. These different security technologies all have their place in an overall security solution. A system might be resilient against an average burglar, or against industrial espionage, or against an intelligence agency, or it could be resilient until researchers make some new breakthrough in mathematics, or until a certain time limit has passed, or against only certain attacks. Like any adjective, secure with no context does not mean anything. What is the difference between the real world and the cyber world anyway? The real world is a relatively dangerous place. A mugger might be waiting for you just behind the next corner. A confidence artist, a conman, fools the gullible into investing their pension funds to worthless stocks. There are terrorists and power-hungry dictators, superpowers with more firepower than common sense that rule the world. Overall, the world is a horribly dangerous place. Then again, the world is a relatively safe place to live in. Dangers in the modern world are possible, but exceptional. You see dangers in the media all the time because bad news sells better than good news. It's unlikely to get killed in a random firefight, well, at least in a safe country. There are of course countries with war too. But most people around you are trustworthy and honest. Attacks in the real world are exceptions, not rules. Threats in the cyber world are pretty much identical to the threats in the real world. That is because people populate both worlds. People are what drives them, people are the end users. People interact with each other, they form social and business relationships, people live and die, both in the real world and in the cyber world. Threats on the internet mirror the threats in the real world. So if there is extortion in the real world, there is also cyber extortion. A bank could be robbed both physically and electronically. Surveillance can be done using a computer or a bottle of yogurt. Privacy intrusion is the same, regardless of if the stalker is a photographer or a hacker. Cybercrimes include everything that the real-world crimes include. Theft, extortion, vandalism, eavesdropping, voyeurism, exploitation, fraud. Everything is included. The threats are the same in both of these worlds. The means to execute them differ though. So extortion, threats, or bribery works in either situation. But then to break in, should we use a lockpick or a password hacking software? Burglars nowadays manipulate network communications and databases instead of physical locks. Terrorists target airline computing systems instead of airports. The motivation for all attackers and attacks are, however, the same. This change of paradigm is due to the computerized world changing its ways to operate. In the past, robbers would put on a mask and point a gun at a bank clerk because, well, money was kept in a bank office. Nowadays, bank offices probably hold a few thousand only. Meanwhile, electronic commerce is thriving, therefore crime has also migrated to the internet. Organized crime will target online banking, in essence man-in-the-middle attacks, instead of physically going to rob banks. And credit card fraud is probably the most common online theft. Invasion of privacy is also not a post-millennial issue. Surprisingly, many records are actually public. In the US, you can even look up social security codes. In Finland, we can look up someone's income and vehicle ownership. For instance, private investigators use these public and non-public registers of information to track people. The police uses industrial private databases in their investigations. Marketers use contact information with no shame. For instance, telecom operators and phone directories will sell phone numbers to telemarketers. The problem is how to stop these kinds of activities, as they are not illegal. Data doesn't actually belong to the person, but to the company that collects it. The invasion of privacy could lead to crime. For instance, imagine hacking remote gas or electricity meters to see if someone is at their home or if the home is empty to, well, accommodate a burglar. Anyway, nothing in the cyber world is new. Money laundering, the underworld, mobs, child pornography, everything existed before the internet already. Even though the goals of physical and digital attacks and attackers are the same, the cyber world is unique in three ways. First, digital attacks are more commonplace. Second, attackers are harder to trace. And third, the consequences of the digital attacks are bigger. The root cause behind this is due to three properties that exist only in digital forms. Those are automation, action at distance, and technique propagation. First, let's look at the automation of attacks. Computers are designed to automate mundane activities. Imagine if a money forger manages to make a perfect copy of a 5-euro-cent coin. These would probably not make much difference to the market economy. No one would care much simply because the forgery wouldn't be worth the trouble. It would be hard to mint so many coins to actually afford anything. But what if we could forge these 5-euro-cent transactions in an online bank? We could then automate this process with a script to multiply and do it digitally 1 million times in an hour or 1 million times in a second. 5 euro cents 1 million times is about 50,000 euros. The point of this is that automation enables these small gain attacks to suddenly become profitable. Second, let's look at action at distance. The internet has no boundaries like physical walls, and there is no need to respect national borders. That means that attackers do not need to be near their targets. Therefore, the number of potential attackers is very high. Attackers also have a lesser chance to get caught. And if they get caught, well, what happens then? Which law is applied if the attack happens in the United States and the attackers were Russian? The third property behind the uniqueness of the cyber world was technique propagation. Hacking software can be pretty much distributed freely online. And crucially, only the original developer of the hack needs to understand how it works. The rest of the users can simply copy some code or software. Technique propagation online is exponential. Imagine that money forging software again. If you put it online today, tomorrow you will have 1,000 users, the day after tomorrow 100,000 users, and so on. In the real world, money forgery would not be a problem even if the copies are perfect. This has actually happened, so we know the result. Still, the internet provides an endless tool pack for potential attackers. Finally, let's look at the concept of proactive security solutions. Traditional security solutions are reactive. If an attacker finds a way to exploit security, they will use it to their advantage until it is fixed. Sometimes exploits can't be fixed, so instead we should minimize the damage caused by the attack. For example, originally all credit card transactions were verified manually. So shop owners were mailed lists of stolen or closed credit card numbers, which they would then have to match whenever somebody wanted to pay by credit card. Nowadays, this verification is of course done online. In the olden days, it would be possible to steal a new credit card from someone's mailbox, that is, during delivery. This is why after receiving a new credit card, it nowadays has to be still activated somehow. In addition, credit cards have many verification protocols that make sure your card is not suddenly being used on the other side of the world. Anyway, the point of this being that a reactive security model doesn't work on the internet. We should somehow be able to predict attacks in advance. The trouble here is that attacks can be automated, so there are indeed a lot of potential attackers.